Granmamare and Lisa are standing and talking, right? And the elderly ladies at the care house are watching them from afar, saying, "Those two have been talking for a while, but I wonder what they're talking about." They have no idea what the conversation is about. Even the size of Mare is kind of intimidating. It's a bit scary, isn't it? There are a lot of scenes like that. I mean, it would be fine if they were the same size, but somehow that slightly imposing size is actually good because it's a little scary. So when the elderly ladies at the care house call out, "Lisa, Lisa," and try to get her attention, Lisa responds like this. She waves her hand and says, "Yes!" And Granmamare also glances over in that direction. Then Lisa starts coming over, but she walks around the flower bed to get there. There's a flower bed placed here on purpose, and the creator has her avoid it. Even when you check the storyboard, it shows the flower bed in this position, and it says Lisa walks diagonally to avoid it. When they go to the trouble of doing something this complicated, there must be a reason for it. So why did Hayao Miyazaki place the flower bed in this position? And actually, it's not just in this one cut. This is the scene where Sosuke and Ponyo finally arrive and meet Granmamare, and here too, there's a flower bed. Granmamare walks in from stage right, but she stops precisely just before the flower bed ends, and it's at this spot that she talks with Sosuke and the others. Granmamare absolutely never lets the audience see her feet. Why doesn't she show her feet? Or rather, why is it that in the first place, underwater, she can freely change the size of her body, making it bigger or smaller at will? Why is that to begin with? Is this woman glowing underwater? Actually, the true identity of Granmamare is clearly stated in Hayao Miyazaki's interview collection, Kaze no Kaerubasho. Yes, Granmamare's true form is a lantern anglerfish. She's a monster lantern anglerfish, and her size is about 1 kilometer, an ultra-giant lantern anglerfish. That's what is written as her true form. And then this enormous anglerfish and a human man, an interspecies. In other words, it's about different species interbreeding and having a child. In Japan, for example, there's the story of the crane wife, right? Like in The Grateful Crane, there are many folk tales about interspecies unions, where a child is born between different creatures. Miyazaki says that this theme of interspecies breeding is actually one of the core elements of Ponyo on the Cliff by the Sea. He talks about it, he talks about it in a really cheerful way. He says, it's basically interbreeding, you know? It's an anglerfish, it's 1 kilometer long. He says it with such delight. So, about the anglerfish, well, I'm sure most of you already know, but what kind of creature is the anglerfish? That's actually the true form of Granmamare. It's a deep sea fish. In reality, it has incredibly sharp fangs in its mouth, and from the appendage that grows out of its head, the tip of that appendage or around that area, it releases a liquid called fermentation fluid. That liquid glows in the ocean. The part of Granmamare that has the shape of a woman is right here. This part takes on the form of a woman, but inside there's the grotesque main body of a deep sea creature, about 1 kilometer in size. The true form of Granmamare, as I just mentioned, is actually the body of an anglerfish. The anglerfish uses its glowing appendage even in the deep sea to lure in prey and eat them. In the same way, Granmamare is a creature that creates the beautiful full body of a woman at the tip of this appendage. It lures in human males and engages in interspecies mating. That's the kind of being it is. Hayao Miyazaki has said, not only in his later books but also in other interviews, that Granmamare has several husbands, not just Fujimoto. In other words, she's greedy, maybe you could call it polyamorous, and basically enjoys mating with various partners. That's her personality as well. Miyazaki says that both Ponyo and Granmamare are like this. But then, where are the other men? Where are Granmamare's husbands besides Fujimoto? Are they, like Fujimoto, living somewhere in that world just waiting for Granmamare to come to them? No, that's probably not the case. The reason is, you can understand this by looking at the true nature of Granmamare as an anglerfish. The way male and female anglerfish mate is quite unique. I actually got this information from National Geographic. It says here that the male bites into the female and fuses with her. The male embeds himself into the female's body and becomes parasitic, almost like a lump or a growth. That's what the male anglerfish is. Once embedded in the female's body, their tissues fuse together and they never separate for the rest of their lives. The male anglerfish spends its entire life parasitically attached to the female's body. The female releases chemicals to attract the males. In the case of the anglerfish, the male is really tiny, about 1/10 the size of the female. Relying on those chemicals I mentioned earlier, the male searches for the female's body, and once he finds her, he bites on anywhere on her body. From that moment, the male's tissues and circulatory system fuse with the female's body. From then on, he gets all his nutrients from the female's blood. The male loses almost all of his eyes, fins, limbs, and fins. His internal organs also degenerate and disappear, and he becomes nothing more than an organ that releases sperm when the female lays eggs. He essentially becomes part of her internal organs. This is what's so unique about the anglerfish, and the fact that they deliberately made this the true form of Granmamare means that, except for Fujimoto, all the other males have already been absorbed into Granmamare's body. So why is it that only Fujimoto hasn't been absorbed? According to the guidebook for Ponyo, Fujimoto is actually set up as the sole survivor of the Nautilus from 20,000 leagues under the sea. When Fujimoto is extracting the essence of sea life inside his own ship, the oldest jar has the year 1871 written on it. Now, the reason why this is such a specific number, 1877, is because the oldest jar of the life elixir that Fujimoto makes is from 1871. Jules Verne published 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the original novel, in 1870, and he published it as if it were non-fiction. Around that time, when the Nautilus sank, Fujimoto was... In 1970, he was saved by Granmamare, and from there, he began producing the water of life. The first jar was made in 1971. That's the setting, I believe. The idea that he's a survivor of the Nautilus from 20,000 leagues under the sea is something Hayao Miyazaki himself has openly talked about, even though he calls it a backstory. So I think this is pretty certain. In this way, only Fujimoto has the role of Granmamare's. It's precisely because he stood in that role that he managed to survive without being absorbed. Ah, sorry, it was 1871. I misspoke earlier. So, for Fujimoto, Granmamare is his beloved wife, but at the same time she's a terrifying being who, if he becomes useless, could assimilate him into her body. Well, even though she says she has many other husbands, Fujimoto is the only one making the water of life from the sea. Probably there were other husbands, but they've already died. Well, since the anglerfish was specifically included in the setting, I think it makes the most sense to assume they were assimilated. And most likely, if Fujimoto ever becomes unable to do this kind of work, if he gets old and can't do it anymore, he'll probably be drawn into Granmamare's body, and his tissues and such will fuse and he'll be assimilated. But at that moment, whether Fujimoto would actually dislike that or not. Whether he would find it scary or unpleasant within this worldview, I think that's actually a question. Maybe, surprisingly, he'd actually be happy about it. And continuing from what I was saying earlier, well, as you can see from what we've discussed so far, there are probably large tentacles connected to the main body of the anglerfish hidden behind this flower bed in the parts you can't see, like this. This one too, for example. Most likely, there are tentacles like this in places you can't see. Lisa had to deliberately avoid the flower bed when walking so she wouldn't step on these tentacles. For the audience enjoying the movie, it's drawn in a way that they wouldn't notice this. The lower part of the layout is designed to hide the tentacles, so when we watch this work called Ponyo, we can see just how creepy the opponent Sosuke is facing really is. It's set up so that we can't see whether he's made some strange contract or not. So why would he make such a contract? In other words, did Sosuke make a contract to always love and protect Ponyo, who, like Granmamare, is a half-fish person? In response to this, Hayao Miyazaki says that Sosuke did it because he's a child. What he means is that adults can't make such promises. Even if they do, adults can't keep them. People often ask, what happens when that child grows up? But there's only one answer to that. When a child grows up, they become a boring adult. All children, without exception, become boring, trivial adults. That's why children are wonderful. This is, well, Hayao Miyazaki's first-class logic. But you see, Sosuke is still a child. He's a child before becoming a trivial adult, so he can make such a lifelong promise. Because he's a child, he can make such an outrageous promise to always love Ponyo and protect her for his whole life. And because he's a child, he tries to keep that promise no matter how impossible it is. That's why his whole life, Sosuke's whole life, will be full of hardships from now on. Ha ha ha, that's what he says, laughing. In that NHK documentary, Hayao Miyazaki's work, which is part of the Professional, the Work Style series, even there, he says, his life is going to be tough from now on. Ha ha ha. Miyazaki himself bursts out laughing on screen. But well, that's how it is. It's tough. So then, why does Miyazaki Hayao call this movie, where Sosuke makes such a difficult contract, a happy ending? You know, from here on it gets a bit interesting, or rather I find it a little scary. For Miyazaki Hayao, all women, not just Granmamare, are scary. It's not just because they come with meals, and it's not just Granmamare that's frightening. For Miyazaki, all women are the same as Granmamare. Women are just like Granmamare, frightening, unfathomable, but also strong and beautiful, and men simply can't win against them. So once you fall in love, you'll be at their mercy for the rest of your life until you die. That's what it means to be a woman, according to Miyazaki Hayao's depiction of women in this film. For example, Sosuke's mother Lisa is like that, and there's that scene where she talks with Granmamare. This is what it's about. The audience is never told anything about it. Even after this intense conversation, nothing is revealed. It's actually quite unnatural. This scene where they're talking, if they weren't going to tell us anything, they might as well have just cut the conversation altogether. But instead, it goes on forever. It's actually a pretty long scene, and it's deliberately given a lot of screen time. In other words, they want the audience to imagine what they're talking about. It's made so that you can't tell, but they want you to imagine it, right? And then, at the end of the story, Sosuke and the others are submerged by that huge tsunami. They're submerged by the massive wave, but for some reason, everything remains peaceful. Everyone is alive and things stay peaceful. And finally, Sosuke's father, Lisa's husband, Kazushige Nagashima, returns safely to port on the Kogane Maru. And of course, the reason the Kogane Maru was able to return safely is thanks to Granmamare. But even the audience isn't allowed to hear the conversation between Lisa and Granmamare. What was it about? Apparently the exchange goes something like, "I'll return your husband, so you must give up your son." That's the kind of conversation they're having. This woman, Lisa, actually considers fighting with her husband more important than her son Sosuke's dinner. Even when her child is in the car, she likes to drive recklessly and dangerously. She even has her own child call her by her name, Lisa, instead of mom. In other words, this Lisa, as a mother in Miyazaki's anime, somehow, to an almost unnatural degree, she is portrayed not so much with maternal qualities, but more as a woman with less motherliness. She's a character depicted with more of her womanly side than her motherly side. So for someone like Lisa, it's not surprising that in a situation nobody knows about and that she tells no one, she's offered, "I'll give your husband back, so give me your son. But don't worry, it's not like I'm going to take your son away from you. That's not it. Instead, with your son," she proposes something like, "It's fine if my daughter lives in your house from now on." And I think for Lisa, that might actually have been a surprisingly good offer. Of course, this is not something you could let the audience hear. I just wanted to convey the atmosphere of a secret conversation. Whenever women are having a secret talk, it always brings misfortune to men. This is a truth of the world that I wanted to get across. That's why the scene ends up feeling so unnatural. It's not just Granmamare who's strong, scary, and beautiful. Lisa, Ponyo, all women are strong, scary, and beautiful. That's the theme here, and because he knows that fate, because all women are strong, scary, and beautiful, he can't stand up to this woman, but he's head over heels for her. He really loves her. He works himself to the point of breaking down, and he knows that someday, when he's no longer useful, he'll either be discarded or absorbed by her. That's the fate he knows, and that's why under Fujimoto's eyes, there's always That's why he has dark circles under his eyes. Every grown man has dark circles under his eyes. And with those dark circles under his eyes and around his mouth, Fujimoto knows his fate. But since Sosuke doesn't know about that fate yet, he's still innocent and energetic. That's the story. So after talking about all this, the anime just ends with a pop. That's how it is. When Ponyo kisses him, it just ends. Pop. And from there, it's happily ever after. And a delightfully cheerful song starts playing. Then it's like, let's all sing the fun Ponyo ending song together. On the other hand, it just ends with that wobbly, fishy tune. Ponyo, 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 sakana no ko, aoi umi kara yatte kita. And that's how it wraps up.
岡田斗司夫の YouTube を見てくれてありがとうございます。ぜひぜひチャンネル登録よろしくお願いします。ではではよろしく。